WIBTA if I stop all of the favors I've been doing for my ex since he has refused the one favor I asked? This is kind of sweaty, but my ex-husband Greg, 38M, and I 30F have two kids, Louisa, 9, and Ted, 7. We divorced over 5 years ago and co-parent very well. The divorce was because I was happy with our two children but he wanted more and even therapy didn't help. We have had basically no issues, there's no child support, we're 50-50, have never had issues having the kids if the other parent has something come up, and understand that it's just about making sure their lives aren't too disrupted. Greg remarried Tessie, 38F, 4 years ago and they have another child, a boy, and another about to make their appearance in this world in a few weeks. I am marrying my fiancé Luke, 36M, in February. We've been together for about 3 years and he's known my kids for 2, we moved in together last year. We have a group chat, but aren't overly friendly or anything, we only talk about the kids and keep it pretty lighthearted. Our only rules with the other datings is that we would introduce our partners to the other before they met the kids, which went great with both of them. When Tessie and Greg married, I obviously kept the kids an extra week for their honeymoon, and again for my actual week so they could settle in. They didn't live together before they got married. When they had their first baby, I kept our kiddos for about a month, but brought them over a few times to see their new brother obviously, so they could settle in since it was Tessie's first baby. A few weeks ago at one of Lacey's games, Tessie told me the date her C-section was scheduled for, which is in the middle of their custody week. I told her we were excited for them and of course I could keep them that week and my following week, and we could go back to normal their next custody period. She kind of hemmed and hawed and asked if we could keep them for another custody week to give them a month again to get used to things. I said that was fine, I didn't expect them to need that much time for their second baby, but C-sections are major surgeries and I said I'd be happy to keep the kid, they don't live far from us so bringing them over to hang out won't be too out of my way and of course I love having my kids with me. Anywho, we finalized our plan for our honeymoon, which is 3 weeks. I know it seems excessive but it's something on both of our bucket lists, but not something the kids would be too interested in, and the honeymoon seems like the best opportunity to do it. Basically what would happen would be that we'd get married on Saturday, my week, the kids would stay with Greg that night and stay for his week, then they would keep them for our week and their next week. So they'd have them for one of my custody weeks plus one extra evening. I don't have family around, my parents died young, grandparents before them, and the aunt and uncle who helped raise me retired to New Mexico, 3-hour plane ride plus 2-hour drive at min. I have friends who have watched the kids before, but I didn't see a single issue with asking Greg to keep them for a week since it seems like there's a bit of precedent. I texted him the general plan and emailed him a more detailed one with locations, days, times etc. so he could know where we were / how to contact us if there was an issue. I thought all was well and good, but they never responded until a few days later they emailed me what Luke and I jokingly now refer to as the manifesto. It was long, rambling, repetitive, and still somehow partially written by ChatGPT. The gist of it was: what kind of mother on a 3-week vacation without her kids? I'm a terrible person in general for asking a young mother to have her stepkids full-time for 3 weeks while I go and enjoy myself. She kept calling Tessie a young mother. I think she means mother of young kids and I know it's not the point but it kept annoying me. Also it wouldn't be alone with her, Greg would obviously be there. I am a horrible co-parent for asking them to have the kids for 3 straight weeks while their kids are so young. Their newest baby will be 6 months old by then by the way. Apparently it's all well and fine that Luke and I don't want any more kids. He has had a vasectomy and known he didn't want kids of his own for a while, but we'd better not think that gives us permission to dump Louisa and Ted on them to gallivant around. I don't think I've ever gallivanted in my entire life. We needed to figure our own weeks out ourselves. This was not life or death and it was ridiculous to ask them. I got petty after this, especially them acting as if we are constantly dumping the kiddos on them, so I went through the last 4 years of texts and made a spreadsheet of how many times either of us has asked the other to keep the kids and the duration on an Excel sheet. While we both have made these requests, they have done so for 87 nights, 52 times, versus me 12 nights, 8 times. Obviously, this makes sense since they have a baby, and I didn't send it to them or anything, but it was good to know I'm not crazy. My friends say I should tell them that. Fine, I won't keep them during their custody time after their new baby comes. I'm not going to do that. I love my kids and want to see them as much as I can. But I do a lot extra for them, just some examples. Sometimes Luke if he's off work, pick the kids up every single day after school, and on Greg's custody weeks I drop them off at their house since he doesn't get off until 5 so that Tessie doesn't have to take the baby out to pick them up. Keep in mind that she does not work anymore. Our divorce decree says that whoever's week it is must drop the kids off at the other parent's house, but I've been doing all of the back and forth for a while again because they have a kid and because it's not that far, 5-minute drive, 20-minute walk if it's nice. I take the kids to all of their appointments, do all of the school parent stuff during the day, etc. Since I have a super flexible schedule and Greg's isn't, he would need to use PTO for all of this stuff. We usually split health insurance per the divorce decree. They're on his work's insurance, but since I take them to all of their appointments etc. I pay all of the co-pays. I keep a tally just in case I would end up owing him money, and I know what he pays towards the premiums, and in the past it was minimal, but our daughter unfortunately has type 1 diabetes which has gotten pretty expensive. It wasn't killing me, but Greg mentioned how tight money was once when I was bringing it up and I decided that it's not affecting my life. Our daughter needed it, so I've been letting it go. Their son has been in the process of being diagnosed with autism and has pretty bad meltdowns. This is all I know from Greg, so they call me pretty frequently to see if I can come and get the kids for a few hours if things are overwhelming. Of course I love my kids and spending time with them, but I've had to cancel plans for this and they have not cared. Greg was in an accident and has been using my old car. I got a new one and hadn't sold the old one yet. It's not worth a ton or anything, for the past 7 months, with no effort to replace it. Greg travels sometimes for work, and Greg and the kids, have a cat over there. Normally Louisa would take care of the litter box if Greg was traveling, but since her diagnoses and until we get her labs/health under some form of control, we both agreed that we don't want her messing with it. They let the cat go outside during the day. Since Tessie has been pregnant she said she shouldn't have to, and Ted is a little young. He tried, failed, now he helps lol, so I've been doing it. Anyways, these are all benefits for them that I'm going to inform them are ending. I won't go back on my word to have the kiddos after she has her C-section, but the absolute gall of them to not do the one thing that I have asked of them, and that I've done for them, have brought me to this. Most of my friends say I'm not going far enough, but a few have said that it might cause a breakdown in our co-parenting relationship, which would affect the kids. That's really the only thing I care about, so now I'm hesitant. Update. Hey everyone, I don't know how to link on mobile, so my last post is in my profile. I got way too overwhelmed with the responses, but like I thought, I was completely being taken advantage of and the friends telling me to let it go can suck it. JK, I know where they were coming from, they were just wrong, and my egg Greg and Tessie do need to be introduced to my good friend reality. One thing I didn't mention in my last post is that Greg and I have a long history. I've known him forever since we moved to his mom's neighborhood when I was 4, we were always friendly and then we started hooking up when I was in college and got pregnant. In his defense, he 100% stood up, married me, took care of us, paid for everything while I finished school, and even paid for my college. But even before all that, he's always been a great guy and my friend. I know it seems like I was being taken advantage of, but of course over the years people probably thought I was taking advantage of him before I started making the big bucks. It was me who filed for divorce. He said he could probably go to therapy and find a way to make it work, but I knew I couldn't ask him to do that. And there has been reciprocity in other ways. After we divorced he definitely helped me a lot in setting up my new home, before Luke and I got together. Doing things like mowing, cleaning the gutters, fixing appliances. Obviously those things don't happen anymore, but I'm just saying it hasn't always been me doing everything. Finally, all of this has not been thankless. Up until the manifesto, they were incredibly and vocally grateful and appreciative. Doing things for appreciative people is great and makes me feel good. Unfortunately now that we are living in the post-manifesto era, I don't get any joy from helping them out like I used to. With all that being said, I can't continue bending over backwards for him just because he was good to me before. Anyways, I got pretty mad at myself at my last post and decided to respond to the manifesto, as I was hyping myself up though Greg called. I was pretty amped, so I decided to answer. He started with apologizing. He didn't say it directly, but I got the gist that Tessie wrote the email in anger because of how overwhelming everything is. He reminded me that it wasn't just his son's issues. Louisa was also struggling to get her diabetes under control. Any other type 1 parents can probably relate. And she misread my email to think that I was asking for them to keep them for 3 of my custody periods for a total of 6 weeks. Going back to the manifesto, I can kind of see where she was saying that, but it wasn't the most coherent thing to begin with. He said 1 week for our honeymoon is totally fine and they will figure it out. He acknowledged that it was entirely inappropriate and uncalled for. Unluckily for him, I was not in the best mood and told him damn straight it was one of the most deranged and untrue emails I've ever read. I asked him if anything they wrote in the email rang true to him in the cold light of day, and he admitted no. I had kind of been going back and forth on this, and was originally going to tell him to go to hell and we would never switch custody times again. I didn't care if they had 5 more kids with C-sections, but I decided against going that far. I told him that I would get the kids when Tessie had her C-section, keep them through my custody, and would expect them to have them back during his next custody period, which still gave them 10 days to recover, etc. If he needed more help, I expected him to figure out any extra childcare for our kids like he will need to with his other son. He started arguing, but I just bulldozed through and told him that he could make this and all of the other times I've helped him out with childcare by watching the kids during my week during my honeymoon. He said that sounded fair and thanked me. But I told him that the email was so far out of line that any and all extras I've been doing were over immediately. He could either find a new carpool, no bus, private school, or I would keep picking the kids up from school, but he or Tessie could get them from my home during their weeks. If they are unable to care for the children due to their son's meltdowns or their new baby, I would be willing to help them, but warn them that due to their accusations I would start, LOL, tracking this, and if I thought it was becoming an issue I would file for primary custody. I asked him if that would help. He could have the kids every other weekend. I wouldn't demand child support in light of his very difficult situation, even though I know I could, and he insisted that wasn't necessary, that it was on them to figure things out. He really didn't have a lot to say back to any of this and apologized again. I told him that it wasn't impossible to rebuild the trust we have had in the past, but it was going to take a lot of time and hard work on his and his wife's part because I was done putting in so much just to get attacked. He promised he understood and he'd figure everything else out. I told him that since this was another verbal, aka not legally binding, agreement, the first time either of them slips up, makes outrageous demands, or says anything remotely close to what she wrote in that email, I would bring down the hammer because due to the attacks on my character I now had a lawyer on retainer, hadn't met with the lawyer yet but sometimes you need to bluff. He confirmed he understood. Tessie sent me a text apology. It seemed sincere but I don't trust her. I know Greg wouldn't throw her under the bus, but the fact that she thought it was okay to send such a demeaning and demonizing email to me after all I've done for her really ruined any grace I was willing to give her. I sent her a short acknowledgement text and went on with my day. Both their lives are about to get much, much more difficult. If they try to put any of that discomfort or difficulties on my kids I will move swiftly, but also if it means that my kids get a little less at their dad's house than they do here, that's not the worst lesson for them. Their needs will always be met, I know that, and they've been in therapy for a while, so while I'm concerned that Tessie could take her frustrations out on them, I truly think they would tell me. I read so many other stories on here and realized that. Edit. 2 things. So the thing with the car, it's meant for my friend's stepdaughter for when she gets her permit. She is 15, and we all love her so much, but she has that disease that 15-year-olds get where she really doesn't have any motivation whatsoever. So I was talking about all this to said friend, she told her husband, and he marched upstairs and told his daughter to get dressed so she could go and take her permit test. She failed, smiley face, but is going to try again next week, and he is purchasing the car next week. Greg knows and knows he has until then to acquire a new one. And the cat isn't Tessie's cat. It was Greg's guilty divorced dad first Christmas gift LOL. I really like the cat, she's very sweet and snuggly and I haven't minded helping, especially since Louisa does feel bad she doesn't do it anymore. Honestly, if it wasn't for that I probably wouldn't have agreed to help. Luckily the induction is soon, and Greg won't be traveling for a while, so it's a moot point. Obviously if they were to decide to get pregnant again, they would need to hire someone to do the litter box going forward. I've probably only done it 3 times, but I see that was crossing some boundaries I should have put up. I'm going to keep enjoying the life that I've worked hard to build. I know they'll always be around and in my life, and it's unfortunate for them that the choices they made got them in this situation, but they're going to have to rebuild their village. I'm excited for the wedding and especially excited to go to Japan. Those things and of course my kiddos are my focus going forward. Peace!